Comic Book Savant, episode 337.
I know this. This I know. All that I have, all that is me, resides inside my poetry. And every time I write a rhyme, it might be the line that sets mine free. And also, I know that I don't...
Welcome to the Comic Book Savant podcast. I'm your host, James Harris. This week, we're going to be going back a little ways, and I'm going to do something that I haven't done in a while, or particularly this episode or this list. Early on in the podcast, I used to do top 10 lists, and I do them from time to time, not as frequently as I used to. And recently, if you guys have followed me on Instagram or on Facebook or even on Twitter, I had went through this massive rehaul on the website because I was referring everyone to the website saying that I put in a search box so you can go back and search for whatever topic that I previously covered before. In doing so, I found when I updated the site a couple of years ago, not all the tagging or metadata converted over, so everything wasn't searchable, only everything since I switched, so it was limited. So going through the whole website, updating everything so all the previous posts and episodes would be searchable for you guys, I came across top 10 list of my favorite writers, and I've done top 10 current writers, I've done top 10 writers, and then I've done like a top list of all time writers. But it really triggered me to go back, and I was feeling nostalgic, and I said, well, let me go back and revamp this list and build in some certain criteria and look at this a little bit differently. But before we get into what my updated top 10 list of comic book writers are, I'd like to give a shout out to the sponsor for this episode and every episode, which is InStockTrades.com. One of the best places to go on the internet when you're looking for collected editions, omnibus, Marvel Masterworks, any type of collected edition that you can think of. You can get it over at InStockTrades.com. They have discounts ranging from 35 to 42 up to 50% off with their deals of the week. I'm not going to directly quote their deals of the week. They're updated every week. Normally, I record on Mondays, and last week I recorded, and then when I put the episode out, they had totally switched. So I gave you bad information because by the time the episode came out, they had already changed for the week. So what I told you was wrong. So if you went looking for what I had suggested or recommended from the deals of the week, it had changed, and I do apologize for that. I hadn't gotten any emails or anything about anybody being mad about, hey, I went and it wasn't there. What did you do? Luckily, that didn't happen. So, but to avoid that embarrassment again, I'll just let you know they do have it's displayed on the front page of the website when you go to InStockTrades.com. They have normally it's about 5 books. They have spotlighted under deals of the week, which you get at 50% off, which is a great deal. If you're unfamiliar with In-Stock Trades, if you're a U.S. customer and you place an order that is $50 or more, you get free shipping within the U.S. That is only for U.S.-based customers. If you happen to listen to the podcast and you're an international customer, they do have international shipping available, but you won't get that for free. So you can still get all those great savings, but you don't get that free shipping. That's only for U.S. customers. But they do have some of the most competitive and cheapest international rates around. So hopefully you would still save a ton than what you might do if you find it locally or go through Amazon or go through something like that by checking out InStockTrades.com. And last but not least, I'd like to give a shout out to my friends over at the Comics Podcast Network. You can find them over at comicspodcast.com. If you like this show and you want to find more comic book related podcasts, that is the place to go. And that is actually created and formed by comic book podcasters. Back when I started back in, Oh, yeah, '06, because it'll be 11 years in August. So, yeah, in around '06, '06, '07, we started the Comics Podcast Network. A group of us just got together, thought it would be a cool thing to do to help us network and help all of our shows grow. There are literally hundreds of podcasts listed there. It started with somewhere around 30, or if it was even 30, and now it's grown to hundreds. And that's a great resource if you're a fan of these podcasts, or even on the opposite side of the microphone, if you're a fan of this podcast and you listen to other podcasts and you're unfamiliar with the Comic Podcast Network, go check it out. You can email the admin, which is Ian Levinstein, which he does the Comic Timing podcast, and a good friend. You can email him or email through the site to ask to be added on to the Comics Podcast Network, and you know they'll set you up, and you can list your podcast there for other people to find. So it's a great resource if you are a comic book podcaster, and if you're a comic book podcast listener and you're looking to discover new shows. So if you have a moment, stop by comicspodcast.com for the Comics Podcast Network. Like I said, it's a great resource. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's jump into it. So when I thought about this, I've done different variations again of this list in my different top 10 episodes, but I really had to think about it. Certain times, this time I put a criteria in based upon the volume of work done by the particular writer. Certain writers, you've heard me talk about Walt Simonson. He's one of my favorite artists. Him and John Byrne were like the two artists, as for me as a kid, when I was a little kid, that drew me into comics and made me fascinated by them. Both just happened to be writer-artist, and I started really comparing it because I was like, man, how am I going to narrow down this list? Because my list of favorite comic book writers, new, old, all together, was kind of huge. It was like somewhere like 21, 25 like different writers. So I had to start breaking it down and looking at emotional attachment and actual volume of work put out by that writer that I really care about. And when I looked at it, sometimes I think with a John Byrne and or a Walt Simonson, you know, I think about Walt Simonson, I think immediately about Thor, I think some about X Factor, and you know, in the mid 80s, you know, and that's in his heyday. But I think sometimes I get it crossed with his artwork as well. And I looked at his writing credits and I was like, it's not much, you know, he has done quite a bit of writing, but he did a lot of artwork and writing together. And then his runs weren't nearly as long. And then he did a lot of art where his wife did writing on, and then he collaborated with a lot of different people. So it was one of those hybrid type things. When I really looked at the volume of stuff he put out as a writer, I was like, well, okay, it's not as much as other writers. So I kind of used that to narrow down when it came to comic book writers, what material, how much stuff I can go back and I could quote that I read from that particular writer. And every time they're on a book, just because their name is on a book, I'm drawn, and and I have that kind of synergy with their writing. So that was one thing that helped me thin out the list immediately, was looking at the sheer volume of work by a particular writer that I actually have read and enjoyed. So this is in no particular order whatsoever. I just listed my top 10 in definitive because I had a bad habit of doing this in the past. When I would do these top 10 episodes, then I would kind of cheese it and be like, I got a tie here. I didn't. I put this criteria in to help me whittle it down to just 10 writers. And I will probably do another episode maybe next month, going back through, artists and so forth like that. If you guys like this episode, then I'll do a more definitive one with comic book artists as well. But number one for me would be Kurt. Well, not number one, but like I said, because in no particular order. The first one I'm going to talk about is Kurt Busiek. Kurt Busiek, I kind of found him in the 90s. He did work on Avengers with when they relaunched the Avengers. It was like an Avengers Assemble. He did a huge run with him and George Perez that I've read bits and pieces of, and it's like a funny story because I'm such a completist and I'm so OCD about comics and collecting them. And this is when I had, and if you guys follow me on Instagram, I've posted like what my comic book room used to look like and how all the trades and hardcovers and stuff I had. I was obsessed with his run on Avengers. I wanted to read it all in completion. I had read bits and pieces, a trade here, trade there, issue there, issue here, and I really liked it. But they put out the oversized, they weren't omnibus, but they eventually did an omnibus, which would have made this so much easier. But I was hunting down these oversized hardcovers they did of him and George Perez's run. So it was like I had the first one, and it was like maybe 6 volumes of it. And I had like 1, 3, 4, 6. And it was like so hard to find the 2 that I was kind of missing out of the set. And I didn't want to start reading it till I had it all, because I was like, I don't want to start, and I just got I'm OCD. I've talked about it. I talk about it all the time on Facebook about, me prepping and planning for the show, the hell I kind of put myself through at times because I overanalyze and overplan like every aspect of this show. It might not seem like it when you listen to it, but I actually do. And it just bothered me, and I hunted. I went to convention after convention. Everywhere I went, I looked for these books, couldn't find them, and then I never could, so I never read it all in completion the way I wanted. Cool thing now is that I have some of the issues digitally, and they're all available digitally, so I can actually finally read it all in completion. But I loved that run, what I read of it. One of my favorite stories of all time, and I've talked about this, and I go back and I reread it every so often, and one of my favorite Avengers stories of all time is Avengers Forever, which Busiek wrote, which is, I've now, because you can actually search, so when I say this, you can find it. I've done maybe 1 or 2 episodes total just dedicated to Avengers Forever, because I think I initially reviewed it, then I went back later and I revisited it, I want to say a couple of years ago, and I talked about it again. So it's either 1 or 2 episodes back if you search for it. If you go to comicbooksavant.com, you can find the episodes that I'm talking about when it comes to Avengers Forever. He did Thunderbolts when Thunderbolts originally launched back in the 90s. He wrote that, and I read that series. Like, I didn't catch on right away. It was a lot of buzz around it. I finally got into it, and I read his whole run on that. Then it switched over to Fabian Nicieza, and I read his, and I read that book for like a long, most of that initial series, I think, up until it ended, or it converted over, and he did so much with it. But I followed it even through the creative teams, but he got me hooked on that book, as well. But he's to me, one of the most underrated writers, because you don't hear talk of him referenced as much as you should, because he has a great body of work. Those are just some of the books of his that drew me to him and how I found him. But it's other stuff that Kurt Busiek's written over the years. He has a ton of work in his bibliography. So, but again, just for me, that's where he makes the list for me. Next for me would be Mark Waid. Mark Waid is another writer. He's been around for a while. He's done massive works. It's funny because he kind of went away for a while, and he's had a big resurgence. He's done Daredevil right now I think he's doing Black Widow, which I have the first trade of that, and I need to check that out. But Mark Waid he was a staple over at DC for years. Then a few years back, he came over to Marvel, and he's always kind of fluctuated back and forth between the companies. I got more acquainted with Mark Waid's writing when in the mid 90s, when I really start getting into DC comic books. I got pulled in by, and I've told the story before, I got pulled in going into a comic shop to buy a Nightwing comic, and it became my gateway into the DC universe. And one of the first books I picked up was Mark Waid's run on the Flash, and with Wally West was the featured Flash at that point in time in the mid-90s. He had a long run, which I think was his second tenure on the book, matter of fact, that ran up to someone else that's on the list that I'm going to get to later. First notable comic book work, because I'm going to talk about that when I get to that individual later. But his run preceded Mark Waid's run on Flash, which was epic. And I want to, if I remember correctly, it was his second run on the Flash book, but it was a pretty long with years on the book. And that's kind of what turned my eye to Mark Waid. He did some work on JLA, which was a Grant Morrison book. He came in later after Grant Morrison's run ended on the book. He did some really good issues on that. He wrote one of my favorite stories of all time, which is Kingdom Come. First trade paperback I ever bought, and I used to read that book every year, like clockwork for the longest time. And I've even gifted that to quite a few people back then when this is before I was even podcasting. I actually would gift that to friends that were on the fringe on comics, and that was a gateway for them to get into comics, was Kingdom Come. He's done other stuff, independent work. A book I really like is Empire. He's co-wrote on 52. He's done some Captain America stuff. Then I went back later after I got into him that I didn't realize it because I was so young. When my cousins used to hand me down comics when I was really young in the 80s, he wrote Cap. He wrote Captain America for quite a while. He did a Kazar run that I have here that I posted pictures on Instagram of the Heroes for Hire run that a listener actually sent me years ago that I'm just getting around to, which is so crazy because the time I finally get around to sit down to read this stuff, now they're finally coming out digital, both series, Heroes for Hire from the 90s, but that was Ostrander. But then the Kazar series that Waid, I didn't think he wrote the whole run. It only was like 20 issues or so. But he initially started it and wrote the first part of that run of it. He has a lot of diverse writing. He's done some Fantastic Four, again, Daredevil. He's doing he's still doing Daredevil, and then now he's doing Black Widow. He's just one of those writers that is transcendent of the time. Like I said, I've read, Mark Waid's writing from the 80s. I've read it from the 90s. I've read it from the 2000s. And that, and now it's the 2010s and still reading his work, and he's still as compelling, and as, alluring of a writer. Even over all these years, he stayed relevant. He still knows how to tell great stories, and that's what I love about Mark Waid. He always stays in the know. Next on my list, I've talked about plenty of times, is Greg Rucka. Let's see, Greg Rucka. He comes from the novel world, and then he's always been both. He's done novels, he's done books, he's done stuff like Queen and Country, which he's most known for, Whiteout, which was done into a movie with, Kate Beckinsale years ago. I never saw the movie. I don't think it's one of his works that I don't think I've ever read Whiteout. I've read Queen and Country, loved it. In the 90s or early 2000s, when they did No Man's Land, they brought Greg Rucka into the comics fold. He had done Queen and Country and stuff already, and Whiteout and all that, independent, and he was writing novels. They brought him in because DC started this initiative with No Man's Land because it was this sweeping, epic story told over like a year. in Batman where they brought in like different famous writers. They had Bob Gale, they had Greg Rucka, they had this extensive list of top tier comic book writers, top tier, people from Hollywood, just anyone that was in there, because the story arcs ran weekly through all the Batman books, and they would write particular arcs, and it went on for like a whole year, and that's really what turned me on to Rucka. And whenever I really get into a writer, I like to go back and look at their previous stuff. So if they have independent stuff, I would seek it out. So after I start reading him doing Batman Detective Comics, then I went and I found Queen and Country. I knew about Whiteout. Then I stuck with him from then. Since then he's done 52. He's done The Question, Batwoman. He did an initial run on Wonder Woman back in the day. He's back writing Wonder Woman now for Rebirth. He co-wrote Gotham Central with Ed Brubaker. He did Checkmate, The Punisher. He's done a ton of other stuff. It's too much stuff to name, but it was just like those are some of the titles. Like after I kind of stuck to him, he writes phenomenal women characters, and I think sometimes he doesn't get as much credit for his writing of strong female protagonists. Just through Whiteout and Queen and Country, which is lead characters are females. Batwoman, The Question, which it was Renee Montoya as The Question. Gotham Central, one of the characters that he built up quite a bit was Renee Montoya through Gotham Central. Checkmate, Sasha Bordeaux. In Punisher, he created a character, Cohen Reeves, I want to say her, something like that. In Punisher, he writes great female characters. His Wonder Woman, phenomenal. First run was awesome. Second run, even better. And I'm behind. I'm woefully behind. When it comes to a female character, you need it done right. He just nails it. Not saying that he can't handle people like Batman, and he wrote Jim Gordon and Harvey Bullock and all that. In that, he wrote very strongly male characters. In Checkmate, Punisher series was phenomenal. I'm saying phenomenal a lot, and I need to stop. It was awesome. How about that? Awesome. Yeah. There, I fixed it. He's even written I don't know, was it a limited series or miniseries on Cyclops, which I haven't checked out. So he writes males just as well as he writes females, but he doesn't get enough credit for his female protagonists, is what I'm trying to say. But he's done quite a bit, and it's a theme. He likes strong females, and he writes them extremely well. Probably next to, I want to say, Josh Whedon, probably one of the better male writers that can write a good female character. And maybe Terry Moore is another writer that writes very strong female characters with ease, just as well as the best female writers that are out there that I love so much when they write female characters, is Greg Rucka. Next for me is Jeff Loeb. I don't know what else to say about Jeff Loeb. Most notably, when it comes to Loeb, when I think about the seminal work for him that turned me on to Jeff Loeb was The Long Halloween. That was one of my first exposures to him and his collaborations with Tim Sale. They've done numerous, Long Halloween, Dark Victory, Superman for All Seasons. They've done them over at Marvel. They've done Daredevil Yellow, Spider-Man Blue, Hulk Gray. They do these collaborations. The last one they did, I want to say, was which I haven't read, is one on Captain America. Was it Captain America White? I want to say. I don't know if they have any more planned. They've done Catwoman one. When in Rome, I want to say it is. I'm just running them off the top of my head. He did Batman Hush with Jim Lee. He's done awesome stuff with Superman, and Superman Batman. Jeff Loeb has been all over the place. He is just a great writer. He's done stuff over at Marvel as well. Right now, he's one of the creative overseers for Marvel Television right now. So in animation, TV and animation, if I remember correctly, head over there. And I think he still does an occasional writing job, but that's what he's shaping. He's helps oversees the Marvel Netflix stuff, the Marvel ABC stuff, and the animated projects they have going down the works. I never got a chance to meet Loeb. I got a chance to meet Tim Sale and got my Long Halloween trade that was ratty as all heck, signed by him, and he was really cool. But I never got a chance to meet Jeff Loeb. I would love to meet him one day. Next on my list is Chuck Dixon, and the story is long. When it comes to Chuck Dixon, I love him because he wrote the Nightwing series that I love so much, and then he also did one of the Nightwing miniseries that led into it. At one point in the 90s, he was writing most of the Batman books. He was writing. He started Nightwing and Birds of Prey around the same time of one another. He was writing those consecutively. Somewhere in between there, he did a stint on Detective Comics. I think he was doing some writing on Batman. That's about Chuck Dixon. Chuck Dixon is one of the best action writers in comic book history when it comes to action. Substance, not saying that he doesn't have substance to his writing, because his run on Nightwing was just awesome. His Birds of Prey run was awesome. I liked stuff he did with Green Arrow, but he is one of the most productive and prolific writers when it comes to output. Because at one point in the 90s, I want to say late 90s, even early 2000s, at one point he was writing every book in the Batman universe monthly. I don't know how the man did it, but he did it, and it was on point. And one thing I always loved and respected about Chuck Dixon is when he was writing all the Batman books, it had the most cohesiveness I've ever seen for a corner of a comic universe. He was writing Robin, and when they crossed over, the consistency in the characters, and that's one thing that's missing sometimes. They won't reflect as well. Something's going on in their own book and they do a guest appearance in another book. They get a little bit, the editors keep things a little bit more in sync now than maybe a few years ago. But you never had to worry about that with him, because if he was doing a crossover, he always made sure he did it with books he was connected and writing to. And the characters and the relationships were always spot on from book to book. He always kept it. I don't know how he kept it all together, but he did, and he was awesome at it. So again, he did some stuff over at IDW with G.I. Joe. He did G.I. Joe Special Missions, but he's mostly known a lot for his DC work. He's done a ton of work over at DC, more than I can list, but that's just some of the bullet points there. Next for me is Brian Michael Bendis. I don't know what I could say. I got a chance to see him once at Heroes Con in Charlotte, and I was sweating like a dog, sitting on the floor, saw him, my mouth was gaping open, and he was going to get something to eat, right too far away from where I was sitting down at, and I was like, "Do you know who you are?" And I was waving at him, and I think Mark Waid was with him, and I was just like, "Do you know who you guys are?" And I was like, "Yeah, you do." And I'm just waving, and they're like, "Who is this big black man sitting on the floor, covered in sweat, waving at me?" And they just kind of smiled and laughed. It was like, "Hey," and I was like, "I feel like such an idiot." But I spoke to them, and they waved. I felt so special for 5 seconds. Yeah. And I don't know. I think Bendis's work. I got into Bendis's work with Ultimate Spider-Man. He was doing Ultimate Spider-Man. I heard so many good things about it. I checked it out. I loved it. I read it feverishly, catching up after I read the initial trade, because I think they had really cool hardcovers, and I bought the first one, heard a lot about it. It's like, dang, this is awesome. And I just like got into the hardcovers. Then I finally got caught up, and then I was buying the individual issues. I got really into his Ultimate Spider-Man run, which he wrote every issue of it. Then they, ended the original volume, did another one, and even another one. He wrote that book forever. He's done some creator-owned stuff like Powers. He did a Daredevil run after Kevin Smith rejuvenated Daredevil. Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev came on, and they had an epic run on Daredevil. Never read it. Heard it was awesome. Need to check it out at some point. Don't know if I ever will get around to it, but I'm going to try because I pretty much love anything Brian Michael Bendis writes. Now, I haven't read a lot of his recent stuff in Marvel, so I don't know. But I've read a ton of his stuff. I didn't read his Daredevil run. I read Ultimate Spider-Man, read some Powers. I never read Alias, and I owned the omnibus that was so hard to find and sold it for a ton of money when I finally got rid of it because it was out of print, so it was super hard to find. Sold it for like $400 or $500. I've written all New X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, New Avengers, Mighty Avengers, which I read a lot of. I read most of his like New Avengers, Mighty Avengers stuff. I liked his Moon Knight 12-issue series he did with Alex Maleev some years ago. He has so much work inside of Marvel and outside on the independent side, and he's done some stuff over on Icon because I think he moved Powers over to Icon, which is Marvel's kind of Vertigo creator-owned kind of imprint that they have. So he's done projects over there as well. He's up there with Chuck Dixon far as prolific, far as the massive amount of output in books with Brian Michael Bendis' name on it is crazy. In long runs, he doesn't do short runs on anything. He does years, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like Ultimate Spider-Man, we're talking about like more like 10 years worth of runs. On a book. When Brian Michael Bendis get on a book, he's dedicated to that book, and he has stories to tell, which I love. Probably the shortest run you'll ever see that he had on anything is like Moon Knight, and that was 12 issues, which is more than what we get nowadays by certain writers when they plan to be on a book a long time. So love him for that, and again, a lot of stuff out there by him. Next would be Robert Kirkman. Should be no surprise that he's on my top 10 list. I love Invincible. I love The Walking Dead. I've even loved shorter, other quirky stuff that he tries. And this is one thing I love about Kirkman is he's not afraid. He's not afraid to just try different stuff and experiment with different stuff and put his name and put his money where his mouth is, because a lot of the stuff that he's known for is creator owned. So some risk to some of this stuff because he doesn't know if it's going to catch on and it's going to sell or not. Again, I'm trying to see when I really caught on to Kirkman. It was kind of in between. It was in between. He was doing Invincible and Walking Dead. I had tried Invincible and loved it. And I think I had tried Walking Dead the first time. I bought like the first trade or something, and I read it and was like, I'm not really into it. And then I went back and was convinced about a hardcover, and then I fell in love with it. So it was around about this time. He was doing stuff over at Marvel. He had done Marvel Team Up, which was a really fun series that I've talked about ad nauseum before. He did Marvel Zombies. He wrote the initial miniseries for Marvel Zombies that launched that into a thing. He later did Irredeemable Ant-Man, and he did some other stuff here and there, popped into stuff over at Marvel, but then he was always doing his creator-owned stuff. And then when I really clicked in with The Walking Dead, my appreciation and love for him, because then I read tons. After I got in, when it really clicked with me with The Walking Dead, and I bought the first Walking Dead hardcover, I had start buying all of the yearly hardcovers they would put out and just read them at 12. I was behind, so I was playing catch up, and it was so much easier then to buy those hardcovers and try to track down the individual issues. The initial issues of The Walking Dead were published with so low numbers, so if anybody back in the day had Walking Dead issues, they were very valuable and still probably are, because most of the stuff have been reprinted in trades and compendium editions and different stuff like that. But that initial first maybe 30, 40, 50 issues of The Walking Dead probably are super hard to find because the print run was so low on them. So that was the real way to get into it. So when I got into Walking Dead, I had already bought the first trade and liked Invincible. So then I started buying those in hardcover. So I was getting caught up in Invincible. And so I fell in love with both books. Then I was reading Marvel Team Up that was coming out at the time, and I was buying that by issue, loved it, and loved his sense of humor. Then he launched the Irredeemable Ant-Man that was only 12 issues. Great series, and I just stuck with his work. He did the Astounding Wolfman. That was a cool take on the time because it was all vampires and werewolves and stuff. It was a fun, real action-based series that was a short run. It was like 30 issues, if that. He did Haunt. I started reading that. I think I did a Trade Your Pick episode on the first volume of that. I even liked some of his recent stuff he did that was experimental. He did something with not Todd McFarlane, with Rob Liefeld. And it only lasted like 4 issues, but I was really digging the series. He was writing and Liefeld was doing the art, which it was doomed to fail just by saying that. It seemed ridiculous, but I really liked the series. I was digging the series, and it only lasted like 4 issues, and I was very depressed because I got into it. I was like, I should have known Liefeld just roasts people the wrong way, and I was like, I knew it was going to fail. Like, even when they first announced it, I'm like, I'm not going to buy it. And I was like, Kirkman's writing it, and it sounds kind of interesting, and I got into it, and I got kicked in the gonads. Because I got all into it, and then it just never ended. It just was the issue 4, and issue 5 never came out. It was like, is it coming? Is it coming? And it never came. It's kind of depressing. Next is Jeff Johns. What can you say about Jeff Johns? I initially read some Jeff Johns stuff and didn't realize it was him till quite some time later. The aforementioned Kurt Busiek and his run with George Perez on the Avengers, when it ended, a little unknown writer named Jeff Johns took over and did some really good, had a nice little stint on the Avengers. That was pretty good. That was a story about, it was a female like Captain Britain, I want to say. She was really good. I read the trade. I picked up the trade. It looked interesting. Read it, loved it. Didn't think about it anymore. Didn't think about him anymore. Some years later, went over. They did a mini series about magic characters at DC called Day of Judgment, and this is when I was full into DC everything. And a little known writer named Jeff Johns wrote it. And you know what? I read it because I thought it would be interesting, and I hated it. It sucked, and I've talked about that before in the show, and I've actually reviewed it at some point back in the day. And I was like, who is this putz? Because this sucked. And aforementioned Mark Waid, and he leaves the Flash, and said writer Jeff Johns comes on to the Flash. Won't really trying to hear about no Jeff Johns at that point because I liked his Avengers, but I still didn't know that it was him at that point. And Day of Judgment kind of hurt my feelings because it was just, to me, really boring. It wasn't as much as it was not wrote well. It just was boring to me. It just was a bunch of nothing. So I wasn't really trying to hear him on Flash. I stopped buying Flash because it was on my pull list at the time. I was just like, Jeff Johns, Day of Judgment, get it away from me. And I started hearing the buzz around his run, and I picked up one of the first trades, and I was like, man, this guy's good. Like, he gets, and I always loved Wally, and I was just like, I was so enamored by Wade's run because, again, next to Dixon writing Nightwing, Wade was the other writer that pulled me, head first into the DC universe at the time with his portrayal of Wally West. And I was like, I'm not trying to see nobody else write the Flash. And I read it and I was like, man, this is kind of good. And I, picked up another trade. A lot of the stuff I did in Trade Your Pick selections early on in the iteration of the show, getting caught up on Flash and getting into Jeff Johns' run. He's done stuff like JSA. He's done the Flash. He did Teen Titans around that time. He launched JSA. Later on, he did Green Lantern, Flashpoint, Green Lantern Rebirth, Flash Rebirth, Green Lantern, Blackest Night. He went back into New 52, did Aquaman. He did 52, the Avengers. Like I said earlier, they went back after he became a name over at DC, and Marvel was like, hey, we had him first. So then they, put his name front and center on his run on Avengers and released a bunch of trades and sold a lot of them. And I was like, oh, that was that dude when I didn't know who he was. Like, he's famous now. Awesome. But he's such a good writer. The books that he's worked on, he has really built those books up. And when he left, whoever the writer was that followed behind him had a tough job to maintain the quality. And he is a diehard comic book head of the highest degree, and it shows in his work. And I wasn't into. I didn't like Flash Rebirth as much as I liked Green Lantern Rebirth. I thought Green Lantern Rebirth was good. Flash was, because I had an attachment to Wally West, so them bringing back Barry Allen, and they had really screwed over Wally in the comic books. It was just a big cluster, and it was a mess. So he kind of saved Flash by bringing back Barry Allen. Like I said, it was I didn't like it nearly as much as his other stuff. I loved his Aquaman run. I immediately will give anything my attention that Jeff Johns writes. He's earned it, because I've read mad books of his Green Lantern run was 8 years or something stupid like that. If you haven't read, his Flash run is awesome. Don't get me wrong. And I haven't still read all of his Flash run. I've read a considerable amount of it, but his Green Lantern run, I told the story one time before where I was reading so much at one point, doing the show. I was probably 3 or 4 years, and I had fallen in love with InStockTrades.com. I was buying stupid trades. I was buying monthly books. I was buying trades. My collection was just stupid, but I had this infatuation. And again, this goes back to the pictures that I had on Instagram of my comics room that I had. I always, as a kid, loved the idea of a library. So I had all these bookshelves, and you would see all the hardcovers, and they were, alphabetized and by publisher, and then alphabetized by character within this thing. And I had this thing about just always wanting to go on a shelf at any given point in time when I felt like reading comics and be able to pick one off. So I picked, I was buying them, and I knew it was not Wade, but Johns, and I was like, I'm going to read it anyway. And I picked up one of the Green Lantern trades, the first one, and I read it. And before I knew it, I read 6 of those hardcovers that day. I just got caught up. And as soon as I read one, boom, got to read the other. Boom, got to read the other. Boom, got to read the other. And before I knew it, I had read 6 of the hardcovers. And he just, when it led into the spectrum, the color spectrum with the lanterns, and then the Blackest Night, just really great. And I was never really a huge Hal Jordan fan because when I came in the mid-'90s, Kyle Rayner was the Green Lantern, so that's who I identified with because that's who I knew. Hal Jordan had been gone for a long time. And then I got a chance to read Rebirth and saw how they brought him back, Hal Jordan back, and it all, and he made me love Hal Jordan as a character because I wasn't familiar with him because I wasn't from that era before where he was prominent in the comics and like in the 70s and the 80s. So he made me a character that I was indifferent about. He made me fall in love with that character. He made Aquaman cool. Drop the mic on that. Enough said. Jeff Johns rocks. Just saying. Next on my list is Matt Fraction. I got the opportunity to meet and have a conversation with Matt Fraction. I've actually sat down and talked to him twice at Heroes Con. Really nice guy. I still have the copy of his first work, independent work, Casanova, the hardcover that he signed for me years ago. Now, this was before he was a name. He was just a struggling writer. He was just starting to do some stuff over at Marvel, and it was like he blew up quick, and he's maintained it, and he's a great writer. Great person to meet. One of the nicest people that I met. Like him and Tim Sale were people that I actually had brief conversations with. I actually had a longer conversation with the first time I met Matt was on a Sunday at Heroes Con where things were pretty dead. I had went down, got a hotel room, so I was there the whole weekend, and I went first thing that morning, and it was like no one around, no one knew who he was. People barely knew what Casanova was at that time. So he like just sat and talked to me for like 15 minutes. He was like this hella cool and gave me stickers and and everything. And I still have the #1 issue because at that time the hardcover wasn't out. It was just the #1 issue, and I had bought it, left it at home. I think he gave me the copy. I didn't even buy it. He gave it to me, autographed it, and I saw him a year later. The hardcover had came out, and at that point, Iron Fist hardcover was just coming out. So he wasn't at a table by himself. He was at the Marvel booth signing stuff. And that thing was so popular. Iron Fist was so hot at that time that he had co-wrote with Brubaker. I couldn't even get it. I had ordered it through DCPS, and I couldn't get it in time. And they had sold out at the table. Like, people were just buying it and getting them to sign it. Because I think him and Brubaker was there at the table. And I actually remembered that time to bring my hardcover of Casanova. And I came up to him, and he remembered me. And he signed it, and I was like, man, you blew up so quick in a year. And he was like, yeah, isn't it been crazy, though? And he was like, I never thought I would be here. And I remember the conversation, like, yeah, you said that. Like, you never, you just thought he would be a struggling writer. And just like in 1 year, he went from unknown, nobody at his table, to he's sitting front and center at the Marvel Center booth, and his book that he co-wrote with Ed Brubaker was sold out, and he's just sitting there signing it and had became like a rock star overnight. It's a crazy, story how he propelled into the spotlight and has held it, and it was because A, he's a good person, and B, he's just a good writer. He tells good stories. He's done Uncanny X-Men, The Immortal Iron Fist. I loved his Invincible Iron Man run, which I have to finish. I'm like halfway through that run. I have all the trades bought digitally, and I just got to finish them. His stuff with Thor, then later with Hawkeye. Just all his stuff has been like really good. Independent, because I can't remember, what is it? Sex Addict, Sex something. He has independent stuff that he's done after that I got to catch up on. Like, he keeps putting out like tons of work, most notably how, again, because Casanova was cool, I never got into it as much as other people, but when he wrote like Iron Fist and Iron Man and Thor and Hawkeye, those are, keystone characters that I love, and he did my characters justice. So like I always will love him for that alone. But last but not least, to round out this list, I have to go with my boy Jason Aaron. you know what? I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think I could have halfway a man crush on Jason Aaron, because by the time I found him, Scalp was on his way out finishing up over at Vertigo. And then he went on Thor. Then I loved it. He didn't go on Thor right then. He did Wolverine. He did some other stuff over at Marvel, like Ghost Rider and other stuff like that. I was like, I don't really get it. It were characters I weren't into, so I didn't get into it heavy. Then he messed around and he did Wolverine and the X-Men. And before that, he did X-Men Schism, which I loved. And that's really what locked me into him. It's like, I love him, man. I love him. I just love what he did with that conflict. I'm not going to get into it because I did a whole episode reviewing X-Men Schism. Search for it on the website. Find episode, listen to it, love it. Then he did Wolverine, and he followed that up with Wolverine and the X-Men, then Thor. Now he's doing Star Wars, and it's just, I like his vibe. It's like he's one of those writers that I feel like most in tune. Like, he knows what I like as a comic book fan when it comes to characters. And it seems like he won't write a story about a character unless he really loves that character. And he loves them in the same way I do. And the way I kind of see him and where I would take him, like, he gets it. I can most identify with him as a comic book fan. His fandom syncs with my fandom, and I just like, when I read something he writes, it's just always kind of spot on with me how he does it. It's just weird. Like, you know, you have like certain writers like Chuck Dixon writing Nightwing is like, give it to me whenever. That's kind of where I'm at with Jason Aaron. He's just that good at what he does on the characters that he selects to write on. He doesn't just write any character. He writes the ones that he really loves. And and if he really loves it, he does it right. He gets it, you know. And so that's my dude. When I see him on something, that's my dude. I will at least check it out. He does it for me. So that's my list of my top 10 comic book writers, and giving you some context on why they're my top writers. I'm going to do a companion piece because, like I said, I'm building out the YouTube channel. The first YouTube video on the Comic Book Savant YouTube channel, youtube.com/Comic Book Savant, was the non-spoiler review of Guardians of the Galaxy. I did the spoiler audio episode and did a non-spoiler video episode. So I'm going to start trying my best for all the audio episodes. I'll do a companion video piece to kind of give you extra content. So I'll do a recommended reading list of these top writers. It's going to be about a list of 25 books. Then I'm going to do a video on. I'll have links in the YouTube video for you to be able to go out and purchase all the stuff. I set up a affiliate program with Amazon, so if you want to help support the show that way, the stuff I'm talking about you'll be able to find digitally or the actual, if you want the physical copies. If it's still something that Amazon sells, you'll be able to link and support the show in the video. I'll put that stuff in there for you guys. So remember, if you go to the YouTube channel and subscribe, I'm trying to grow that up. It's going to be additional content. If you like the podcast, that, like I said, the first thing I was serious about what I was telling you guys have helped me, guys and girls, I don't want to exclude my female listeners out there. You guys have helped me grow this channel by leaps and bounds, this show, because it's not a podcast anymore. So I feel like it's more of a show, and I'm branching it out. I want to grow it in different ways, and I need you guys' support. So share. If you check out the YouTube video and you like it, share it on social media, retweet it out, share it on Facebook, all that stuff. Subscribe to the channel. Already since, last week, and I did that episode, I don't know how long it takes to grow a YouTube channel. I got like six subscribers already. That's cool. I haven't, I shared it out on social media. I don't have a ton of followers. So, do that, again, share it, keep spreading the word. Like like I said, I'm growing it. I need you guys' support. So when I'm doing stuff like the Amazon affiliate links, I'm going to be doing some different stuff and actually offering some incentives on the Patreon that I talked about. So I'm going to be working on some stuff with that. I'm doing more giveaways with InStockTrades.com. So I'm going to try to offer more value for your time that you invest in helping me grow the channel, and give you, I don't want to just be up here saying, hey, it costs money to do the show. And, the thing I realized about it is whenever I've put out a call to action to you guys as listeners of the show, and I gave you something when I had like my eBay store, and I was like, when I was buying tons of comics, but just honestly, I was married then, but I was married and I didn't have kids. I'm married now, I have kids, I got grandkids. I don't have the money to spend on comics and put in as much into the show as I did 10 years ago. So I do need you guys' support more than ever now by you spreading the word, by you clicking on the affiliate links, checking out In Stock Trades, hitting up the sponsors, things like that. The Patreon's there. I got one Patreon. Hopefully, by adding value to it, where you're getting something for the money that you contribute to the show, it'll help me grow. I want to, upgrade my equipment in the studio that I record in. I want to, be able to go to conventions and actually, I haven't been to a convention in years to like meet you guys. It's been so long since I've done that, and I miss doing it. And just by myself with what I make from the one sponsor that I do have to put into the show, to do all those kind of things, I can't do without your support. But I know you want something you want value for your investment. So that's what I'm investing in with the video content, more audio content, better quality content, and connecting and having that communication with you guys. So definitely, follow me and, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram and on Twitter. Both are at Comic Book Savant. Go to the website. It's going to be posts with the videos there, with the audio there. If you subscribe through iTunes and that's the way you get the show, awesome. If you're hearing the show for the first time and you want to go say, hey, I wonder if he did an episode on this or on that, because if you subscribe to iTunes, you might get all the previous episodes, but the website is the best piece to go with it, because now it's everything searchable. And I spent like the last week, literally, I spent like 4 or 5 days last week going through, updating, making sure every single post on the Comic Book Savant website was searchable. So now you can go into that search bar on the side and be like, whatever, comic, movie reviews, top 10 list, like whatever kind of episodes you're looking for, or topic. If I did it, I'm pretty much sure, because I like really tricked out the tagging and the metadata on the post, that like if you even get granular as Greg Rucka, like if I have something that was a Greg Rucka focused episode, you type that in that search bar, episode should come up. Like I went really stupid. Like I was about to. I don't have hair, and if you've watched the video, you see I don't have hair. But the little sprigs of hair that pop up on my head from time to time, I would have pulled them out. Like that's how much work I put into making sure the database was searchable. Because as of this episode, it is 337 episodes. Not everybody has. I don't know. Let me not say that, because I would sound like an idiot. I don't know if one person that's listening to the show right now has listened to all 337 episodes. If you do, I love you. I love you. I love you. But if you have it and you're new to the show, this is one way that you can go back. I still feel like the back catalog of content is just as entertaining and as relevant if you've never checked out those books that I've talked about. Again, it's a 10.5 year archive of comics history in the backlog of this show. So definitely check it out. More stuff is to come. Like I said, the 11-year anniversary is coming up in a few months in August. It's going to be a big giveaway that I'm trying to set up now with In Stock Trades, where again the YouTube channel is launched. I promised it for years. It is now a reality. It's because of you guys that it is a reality, and I'm going to keep it going strong. Like I said, the Patreon, which is patreon.com/Comic Book Savant. If you go to the website at comicbooksavant.com, it's links to all that stuff. So if you want to check out the Patreon, it's actually new incentives there for the different pledge amounts that you can pledge. If you're not familiar with Patreon, all that Patreon is like a way you can pledge your support to a show to support, whatever it is. It's just a platform. For me, I'm a podcaster. It helps supports the show. It goes into the thing I set particular goals on there, so you'll see it. If it starts like at $1. You can pledge whatever you want, but at like the $1, like at the $1 thing, you get one type of reward, and it goes up. Like if you pledge $5 a month, and then like $10. Those are the 3 tiers that I have. So like if you want to help support the show to keep the show going, it is incentives built in there. You can go to patreon.com/Comic Book Savant to see what those are. Again, I'm trying some different stuff to give you more value added content. So like if you choose, if you can, because not everyone has the money to give that support. But if not, keep doing what you're doing by spreading the word, sending me messages. I just got a cool message, yesterday. I don't know if he wants me to say his name on the air, but I talked to a listener. Like we were on, we're friends on Facebook, and he was just messaging me, telling me about how he enjoyed the Guardians of the Galaxy last week's episode. So many of you guys are going to the Facebook page and liking the Comic Book Savant Facebook page. So it's like, you guys don't know, like that's the fuel that keeps me going in doing this. Getting feedback from you guys, seeing the likes, seeing the subscriptions, seeing the follows, like all that kind of stuff lets me know that what I'm doing means something. I could do it, and it's a part of me, and I do it regardless. And that's why I've done it for almost 11 years. But knowing that it means something to you guys that are on the other side of what I'm doing. I'm just someone that sits in his home looking at a computer screen in front of a microphone talking to you guys, hoping that my love for comics, you guys can get on your end, and and we connect on that level. I hope that's why you're here, and I hope like the recommendations that I give, that you check that stuff out. Like those are the whole things that I hope. So if I hear and say you enjoyed the show and you laughed at something I said, or you checked out a book that I recommended, or shoot, you send me a message and you recommend a book to me, it might be something that I don't have, might be something I have that's sitting in my digital stack that I will then go read. Like that's what makes this show and this interaction is so cool, is that connection that we have, and that's my motivating factor. It's a part of me because I've been doing it for this long, so I enjoy doing it, but I enjoy the interaction that we share. That's the hook. That's the juice. That's what they like to say. That's the juice in it all, is that interaction. So I think I've said enough for this week. We almost I've hit an hour. So normally they're not that long. But be on the lookout this week. It'll be a video companion suggested read list from this top 10 comic book writers. If you guys like this enough, or let me know from the downloads when I see the numbers of the downloads, or you guys go to the Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Comic Book Savant. If you tell me you like it, hey James, do artist next. I'm gonna do artist. I'll do that like next month. I'll do an episode on my top 10 comic artists, and we'll go from there. So that's all I have for this week. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching in advance, for going to the YouTube channel to check out the Comic Book Savant YouTube channel. What's the page again? youtube.com/Comic Book Savant. Go subscribe, tell a friend, go subscribe, tell 2 friends. And I'll see you guys next week for another episode of Comic Book Savant. Take care.
And into lyrical wholeness. And I know this, and I know this. This I know, this I know.